For the first time in what feels like forever, the Lakers weren't just mostly healthy. They were fully loaded. Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves finally shared the floor again, and that matters more than people realize. Before this game, the trio had logged barely around 150 total minutes together across just 10 appearances. That's not enough time to build chemistry, rhythm, or a true identity. If this team is serious about making noise later in the season, those three can't just coexist. They have to evolve together. And for one night at least, we got a glimpse of what that might look like. The bigger story wasn't just the stars. The entire roster was available. Every role player, every rotation piece, even the two-way contracts. That kind of depth unlocks experimentation. And that's exactly what happened. The Lakers rolled out a new starting lineup featuring Luka, LeBron Reeves, and Marcus Smart, a defensive adjustment many had been calling for. The previous starting group with Rui Hachimura had struggled badly in extended minutes, posting a deeply negative net rating that raised serious questions about balance on both ends. Swapping Rui for Smart immediately shifted the tone. The defense looked sharper. The point of attack pressure improved, and while it wasn't flawless, it felt more structurally sound. But the most intriguing development didn't come from the starters. Midway through the first quarter, a different combination hit the floor. Luka alongside Luke Kennard, Rui Hachimura, Jake LaRavia, and Jackson Hayes. Later, Vanderbilt rotated into that same structure. What followed was explosive. In under 5 minutes, that unit stretched a slim lead into a double-digit cushion, pouring in 20 points and drilling 5 threes. The spacing was the story. Kennard and Rui, both elite perimeter threats, forced defenders to stay attached. Luka had room to operate, and with Hayes lurking as a vertical lob threat, the floor wasn't just spaced horizontally, it was stretched vertically. This is the formula Luka thrives in. Shooters glued to the arc, a rim runner diving hard, and defenders scrambling. Against a disciplined Clippers defense, that group created clean looks possession after possession. One sequence stood out. A high pick and roll forcing a slower big into space, eliminating drop coverage and opening the paint. It wasn't just hot shooting, it was structural pressure. For the first time, this felt less like improvisation and more like blueprint. And this is where the lineup stopped being theoretical and started becoming dangerous. When Luka dragged Brook Lopez out to the perimeter, it completely flipped the defensive geometry. Lopez is comfortable protecting the rim in drop coverage. He is not comfortable chasing a creator 25 feet from the basket. The moment Jake LaRavia set that high screen, Luka exploded off it, forcing Lopez to step up higher than he wanted. That single action bent the entire defense. Now John Collins had to rotate over to contain the drive, and that's the chain reaction. When Collins stepped up, Jackson Hayes slipped behind the coverage for an uncontested lob lane. But here's the detail that matters even more. The weak side defenders couldn't help. Kawhi Leonard was glued to Rui Hachimura in the corner. Another defender stayed attached to Luke Kennard above the break. Nobody could stunt. Nobody could tag the roller. That's elite spacing discipline. So Luka had options. Real options. Next possession, same pressure, different punishment. This time the Clippers switched the action, trying to prevent the downhill attack. That left John Collins isolated on Luka, on an island. And with 4 shooters orbiting around him, there was nowhere to send help from. Kawhi couldn't dig. The corner couldn't collapse. The wing defender couldn't cheat off Kennard. Lopez had to respect Rui on the perimeter. That's the nightmare scenario for any defense. Luka Doncic one-on-one with space. He could step back. He could drive. He could snake into the mid-range. The possession belonged to him. And after that, the Clippers adjusted again. They decided they weren't going to let Luka cook in isolation, so they blitzed him hard on the next high pick and roll. 2 defenders jumped the ball, force it out of his hands, make someone else beat you. That's the correct playoff-style adjustment. But here's the problem. When you blitz Luka in a lineup built like this, you're rotating into fire. The double team forced a skip pass across the court, a difficult, high-risk read. Luka made it anyway. The ball swung to Luke Kennard, the most dangerous catch-and-shoot weapon on the floor. Clean look. 3 points. And it didn't stop there. On the very next trip, Kennard showed why this lineup works beyond just shooting. After receiving the ball off movement, he attacked the closeout. No hesitation. He put it on the floor, beat his defender off the dribble, and forced the help to collapse. That triggered another rotation and another kickout, this time to LaRavia in the corner. Another clean three. Man coverage didn't work. Switching didn't work. Blitzing didn't work. In barely 3 to 4 minutes of game time, the Clippers threw multiple defensive coverages at this unit, and none of them stabilized the possession. Because this wasn't just hot shooting, it was structural pressure. Horizontal spacing from Kennard and Rui, vertical gravity from Hayes, secondary playmaking from the wings, and Luka orchestrating all of it. That's why this lineup is so intriguing. When Luka is hitting shots the way he was that night, and when the shooters are confident enough to attack closeouts instead of just standing still, the defense runs out of answers quickly. The question isn't whether it looked good. The real question is whether this level of spacing and decisiveness can hold up when the scouting report tightens and the playoff rotations shrink. But for that stretch, it looked borderline unguardable. Just when the Clippers thought they had stabilized things, Luka slammed the door. To close the quarter, he buried 2 absurdly difficult threes, one off balance, one with a late contest, both momentum shifters. And that's when the true ceiling of this lineup revealed itself. Because when Luka is not only orchestrating but also scoring at that level, and he's surrounded by legitimate shooting threats plus a vertical rim runner, the defense is no longer reacting. It's surviving. In less than 5 minutes, that group poured in 20 points. Not in garbage time, not against backups, against a disciplined Clippers defense packed with length and physicality. And here's what makes it more impressive. This wasn't a well-rehearsed unit built over months. This was the first real extended look at Luka flanked by Luke Kennard and Rui Hachimura, with either Jared Vanderbilt or Jake LaRavia on the wing and Jackson Hayes diving to the rim. Minimal shared reps, immediate impact. That tells you something. Because this isn't just about hot shooting, it's about lineup logic. Anytime the Lakers place Luka on the floor without LeBron or Austin Reeves, but keep spacing around him with Rui and a lob threat like Hayes, the offense simplifies in the best way possible. The reads are cleaner, the floor is wider, the responsibilities are clearer. In prior sample sizes, similar constructions have quietly produced strong net ratings in limited minutes. Now imagine upgrading the shooting around him even further. Replacing a low-volume guard with someone like Kennard, a high-level movement shooter who also attacks closeouts, fundamentally changes the pressure points of the defense. You can't cheat off him. You can't stunt and recover comfortably. And when he puts the ball on the floor, he doesn't panic. That secondary decision-making matters in playoff basketball. Offensively, there's very little to dislike. You have horizontal spacing from 2 legitimate perimeter shooters, vertical spacing from Hayes rolling hard, a defensive wing in Vanderbilt or LaRavia absorbing tough assignments, and Luka operating with autonomy. It's balanced in a way that maximizes his strengths instead of crowding them. Now defensively, is it perfect? No, but it's not fragile either. Hayes provides rim presence and mobility. Vanderbilt brings switchability and rebounding. LaRavia offers positional size. The unit may not be elite defensively, but it's competent enough to hold ground while the offense stretches leads. And that's often the formula in modern playoff rotations. Survive on one end, dominate on the other. Here's the real strategic value. This lineup gives the Lakers a non-LeBron offensive engine that doesn't collapse when the stars stagger. When LeBron and Reeves sit late in the first or early in the third, instead of bleeding points, you lean into Luka with tailored spacing. That keeps the pressure constant. It forces opposing coaches to burn adjustments earlier than they'd like. And if a trio of strong perimeter defenders like Kawhi Leonard, Derrick Jones Jr., and a physical frontcourt couldn't contain it in that stretch, what's the counter? Do you switch everything? Luka hunts mismatches. Do you blitz? The shooters punish it. Do you drop? He walks into pull-ups. The chessboard tilts in his favor when the pieces fit. Now, sustainability is the real question. 5 minutes doesn't guarantee postseason dominance. Playoff scouting will tighten, rotations will shrink, closeouts will be sharper. But the blueprint is there. The structure makes sense. And when structure aligns with talent, that's when lineups evolve from experiment to weapon. Even Luka acknowledged postgame how much cleaner the floor felt playing next to a movement shooter. That matters. Stars feel space. They recognize comfort. And comfort breeds aggression. The Lakers don't necessarily need this to be their closing lineup every night. They don't need it to start games permanently. But they do need reliable offensive bridges, units that can extend leads or flip momentum without overtaxing the main trio. This might be that bridge. The bigger picture? The Lakers finally have lineup versatility. They can play big, they can go small, they can lean defensive, or they can unleash spacing-heavy units around Luka and let the math tilt in their favor. The season won't be defined by one explosive quarter, but rotations are often discovered in moments like this. 5 minutes that force you to reconsider hierarchy. 5 minutes that reveal an answer hiding in plain sight. So now the pressure shifts to the coaching staff. Do you treat it as a hot stretch, or do you refine it into something repeatable? Because if this version of Luka, empowered, spaced, decisive, becomes a consistent feature rather than a cameo, the Lakers don't just gain another lineup. They gain a problem opponents have to solve. And in playoff basketball, being the problem is everything.